It actually worked. I left it up in the correct place, and it reminded me at the correct time to go live. So I mean, it's only like 5 failures in a row. At least we've got it once where it actually worked. Though work is a relative term. If I seem a little bit distracted, it's because I'm looking at a whole bunch of stuff, and all of the whole bunch of stuff is not really promising. Oh my goodness. I might not have a good enough connection that I can stream at all today. It's a little bit cloudy, and there's supposed to be a storm later. Actually, any minute. But I didn't expect it to have this significant an impact on the stream. But it really, really, really is having a significant impact on. I mean, right now it's good. Right now my connection is fantastic. But it wasn't just like 10 seconds. Still have lots of drop frames. So I'm just giving it a minute. Let's see. If I can, well, that doesn't really. Yeah, I think I might call it. Man, that's a bummer. Really. Well, I'm not going to call it just yet. I think that what I want to do is I want to talk about a few things and hope for the best. And then if not, then I'll talk for 5 minutes and then at least have a VOD that will stay up, and then you know, there'll be something. There'll be something. So the things, really what I wanted to do today. Welcome in, Matt. Good to see you. Really what I wanted to do today was kind of tie a bunch of stuff together, and I didn't expect that to take very long, so I pulled up some videos to actually go over. Let me move that out the way, because there's a few things that I want to talk about, go over. And I was really looking forward to talking about Kayamatara's Self-Help for Revolutionaries today, too. I mean, my connection is okay now and seems to be improving. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. We're going to start and then see if we can keep going. Cool. Right. Yep. So let's talk about wrapping some stuff up. Let's what we've been talking about doing. What we've been talking about. What's the best way to begin today? Right. Let's go with this. Hey, welcome in, Eleni. Great to see you. I hope you're doing well. Excellent. Good to see you. Right. So this is what we've been talking about. Is trying to think about what it means to be a leftist, right? To think about this kind of categorically, but we want to be able to talk about this in a way that is also not terminating. And by that I mean we want to create identity by negation. This is something that we haven't talked about. I didn't plan about talking about this until just now. But right, so rather than us saying this is what you must do to be a leftist, because that account will always be limiting, no matter how loosely you've defined the category. Having defined the category limits the category in a terminating way, in a way that cements it and cements the meaning of it in a way that makes it non-manipulatable by you all, by being the thing, right? What we are trying to avoid is establishing a category of being that is treated like femininity. Fantastic example of this, right? We are not trying to create a gender or a category of being that is defined and clearly limited to certain kinds of behaviors, certain kinds of roles, certain kinds of performances, certain kinds of presentation to the world, in the way that toxic femininity is a policing of femininity, right? We want to avoid that kind of thing. Identity by negation avoids creating a limiting, defining terminal box that is the category. By identity by negation excludes whole categories of possibility from the definition of what it means. And we can do that without limiting or making the meaning of the idea something static. It must be dynamic, because that's a thing that we are, and people need to be able to be in that category flexibly, right? So that's kind of what we're trying to do. We're trying to, and some of this language needs to change too, because that's the problem with a positive account or a positive definition, is that it is that limiting kind of way, right? So rather than it being a positive account, we might want to have a different kind of account. I'm not sure what the term for that is. Making the definition of something its definition by purely negation. There probably is a term for it. I just don't know what it is. Right, but that's the general idea. We're trying to come up with an idea of what it means to be leftist, and trying to figure out what it means to hold each other accountable. This is another way that the language in this needs to change. And something I've thought about, and I meant to get the ball rolling on this, and I've just been kind of busy the last few days trying to get everything caught up with school. I'll probably do it this weekend. I might make a note about this right now. Is that I would like to have some kind of living document that you all have access to and can make changes to, or can at least make suggestions to those changes. Because I believe that our conversations on stream would be much better, much more lively, more rich and full of content if you all had access to some of this stuff and could put your own input in, and that way you've got time to think about what you want to say, the kinds of the points that you would like to make, and then you can put 1 or 2 sentences or a whole paragraph if you want to, right? And then we can talk about that on stream, and then we can talk about the different ways that we understand or interpret, right? Because that's what I want to do with this space. I have a bad habit, or it's just a habit. I have a habit of doing a lot of talking, right? Of for lack of a better way to phrase it, I do a lot of being a spokesperson for all of you on your behalf without necessarily your approval or consent, right? That I'm having this very one-sided conversation and you all get to participate in chat, but it's not the same kind of thing. Being able to, in real time, say the words as soon as they come to your mind, as opposed to the delay of the chat, and by the time I get around to reading it, which could be, with me, you never know. It could be 10 or 15 minutes from the time that you actually put it in chat, right? So I think that would be kind of empowering for you all to give you all another avenue to add a whole bunch of input into the conversation that doesn't require you quickly, in real time trying to keep up with scatterbrained professor as they're just hopping from topic to topic to topic as their brain gets there. I'm making a note about some kind of document thing. Document hub. I'm not really even sure what the right word for that is. But I know that like Google Docs has that option. There are a few that I'm aware of that are tools that I have access to because of work, but I don't collaborate with other professors. I don't do other things. I don't participate in any of the faculty senate stuff or any of the other things that goes on around campus. So I don't use those tools. I have access to a bunch of those kinds of tools, but I don't even know what they are. All right, so that's how we want to rephrase this. A large part of the problem that I had anyway, moving forward with this project, was that I knew that the language that I was coming up with was not right. And I think that it was very helpful and advantageous, at least for me, to bump up against this idea, this word, this term of policing, and all of the cultural baggage that comes along with it, because that's not what we should be doing to our communities. Within our own communities, we should not be policing. What we should be doing is holding each other accountable. And that's a kind of thing that has to do with real authority instead of a pretend authority. And this is a whole gamut that we've run through trying to figure out some of these moral issues that we've run into. I was pointing to the wrong place. Again, I keep forgetting I've moved me. It's been a long time over there on that side of the screen, so now that I'm over here, it's a little bit oriented. But right, some of the issues that we've run into so far as moral beings being on to really drive this point home. That the reason why I am able to confidently make all of the claims that I have made so far about what I would like to do with this project have to do with this, right? The authority by which I am making these claims are this authority, the authority that makes rights real, that makes morality meaningful. That's the authority to which we are appealing for this this account of how we ought to be concerned for the well-being of each other in a very proactive way, right? And that's maybe another aspect of the framing that we need to talk about. It is not the case that we are trying to find fault with each other. It is the case that we want to be aware of our own faults and to help our comrades with their faults so that they feel comfortable helping us with our faults. So we need to be corrigible, that is correctable. We need to be the kinds of beings which are not beyond correction. That we need to understand that what truth is not something that you know. That's not what real capital T truth is. Real capital T truth is a negotiation that takes place in the real world with other moral agents in the material moral world. That world to which we have merely immediate access, right? And that's the basis, the metaphysical basis for all of these claims is we are in a plurality. We come to find ourselves in a world of others. Those other people who were already existing in the world before we were even born built a world of moral rules and structure to which we were given. We come to find ourselves in that world and are determined by that world. The most evil people in history thought they were always right. Absolutely. And that's exactly what we want to start moving away from. If we as a species, right, not just culture and societies, if we as a species are going to survive, what Eleni just put in chat is something we all need to come to understand, is that no one is right. No individual in history has ever been right about anything. And all of the people, the most evil people in history, are all people who thought that they had it so figured out that they had the right to force everybody else to live that way, which is another way of saying fascism, right? That's what fascism is. I have the answers. There's one right way for us to live, and if you don't do that, I'm going to abuse you. I'm going to punish you. I'm going to socially enforce these rules the one way that I think is right for everyone to live, or else. That's fascism. Instead, we need to come to understand that truth is a negotiation that we work out with each other. Wrong document. There is no such thing as a moral agent which exists in the world by themselves. Where am I looking for? This is a point that I haven't really driven home yet. We're not there yet. People believe that they can imagine themselves to be such impartial moral agents as a product of their detachment. That's just a bunch of gibberish letters that end there. I don't know how that happened. Right. To imagine oneself as making autonomous moral decisions would require a world in which only the acting moral agent is the sole evaluator of good. But this is the problem, that people believe that individuals have the ability to know moral truths, because that's the problem, right? And we there's I need to have a better name for this problem in general. One of the greatest difficulties as an educator that I run into is not that people are ignorant. The greatest difficulty as an educator that I run into is that people already have knowledge. And they believe that that knowledge is axiomatic. They believe that they are incorrigible, that they have knowledge. That's the problem, is that people believe that they have access to moral truths. People believe that they can have moral knowledge about the world, but you can't. But that is metaphysically not accessible. I should say epistemologically. It's epistemologically not accessible to you because of your metaphysical existence with ontology. As a being with being in a time and place. You are a subject with subjectivity necessarily. Welcome in, poor boy. So good to see you. My own morality is the standards I hold myself to, not others. Right. That's that is a code of ethics. And not to correct, but what my academic training would lead me to say is that what you have with regard to this is you have a personal code of ethics. And having a personal code of ethics is a valuable and important thing for people to have. This is it's an instrument with which you navigate the world. It's how you understand your value to yourself and how you understand others as having value, and that there are rules pertaining to how you engage with each other. That's a moral understanding of the world that is part of your personal code of ethics. And that is yours. Wait, where'd you go? Yeah, this is yours. This is independent. This is something that is abstracted from the material world that you hold in your citadel of the mind. But for that to have usefulness and function, it needs to be honed in the world of others. And that's how you come to understand moral truths. So there are principles to how we treat each other. With respect and dignity, for example. That's not necessarily a moral truth. It's a principle. Yeah, sometimes I start to say things very authoritatively, and then I go, wait a minute. Let me get caught up with chat, and let me think about that a little bit more. Yeah, we do hold others to morality, right? That's true. But that's part also of your personal code of ethics. What I'm trying to get to is that there is a relationship. You have an ego that is to which only you have access. There is an identity to which only you have access. And that identity is something that you get to build mostly by yourself. But you're using all of the blocks and all of the axioms and all of the ideas that the world has given you. So it's not really entirely yours by that faculty either. You choose how to construct the ideas that the world has given you, but you can't choose what ideas the world gives you. So there's definitely some intersections here. I don't hold others to morality. That's cult modality. having standards for others isn't morality necessarily. I know that I agree with you. I just have to figure out how. um, I believe that there's some language. Yeah, semantics. I think that there's some semantics going on here. Right. If I have boundaries, I do expect other people to respect those boundaries. If otherwise, having boundaries is meaningless. Right? If you have boundaries, but even you won't enforce the consequences of when those boundaries are pushed, then you really don't. You have things that you believe that you would like to have as boundaries that you won't enforce, right? And so there is some amount of holding to others too that is necessary as part of morality. I think that what maybe you probably mean is you don't think that other people need to believe the same as you about moral things, that you don't need other people to have the same moral truths or moral understandings or moral responsibilities to themselves or to others. And that's what I was saying. I think I agree with you. I just got to figure out how. That's how I am. I like to live in a clean house. So I live in a very clean way. I clean my house very regularly. And whether or not other people participate in the cleaning of the house doesn't matter. I have standards for how I would like to live. So I do those things to the extent that I've got the energy and time, right? And I don't hold my roommates to my standards of cleanliness. Whatever they do is how they want to live their life, and that's fine. We don't interfere with each other in that way. I'm a clean person, so I do lots of clean things, to keep the place clean. But that's me upholding my standards, and I don't get mad at other people because they're not doing the dishes when that's my expectation. I don't get mad at other people for not doing the thing. That's my expectation. If I care about it, I'll do it. And if I haven't done it, then I don't have time or whatever. That's between me and the thing. That's not anybody else's responsibility to live up to my standards or to meet my standards or to do my things, right, for me. Morality is language of piety. Religious people use it to oppress others. Yes, I will agree that religious people use morality to oppress others. But that's not what they're using. What they're using is a system of rules that requires a certain kind of performance. So that's not morality at all. There is a world of morality that has to do with how humans engage with each other. And what religious people do doesn't really have anything to do with morality other than it flouts morality in general, makes up its own rules, and then punishes people according to its own rules, however it feels fit. So not drinking alcohol is good, but that doesn't necessarily mean... So not drinking alcohol is good, but that doesn't necessarily mean drinking alcohol is bad. Okay. Yes. Yeah, and this is I think, right, at some point we have to cross a certain threshold when it comes to morality. There's a certain degree to which I can respect you and I can entertain tolerance. There is a threshold for that, right? And there are certain kinds of abuse or harms or evils that require from us some kind of action. and that's, we do something about pedophiles isn't the same thing as the way that religion is used by religious people to punish and oppress, right? There's, I think, a very, very important disconnect from the way that we use those the language around those things. Religions gaslight people with rules. So I'm not sure it's no, and that's the thing. Religion is not a good example at all. It's and again, what religion is antithetical to morality. But I really, let's really do this. I want there to be no misunderstanding about how I understand religion and its relationship to morality. Religion is an absolute perversion of morality in general. Just it is something that looks at the way that people treat each other and has decided to create this system of oppression. It is a system of oppression that is designed to recreate itself. That's these two things are very tied together. And it does so by removing the moral agent from their relationship with being able to with the morality in the world, being able to discern morality for themselves, to make moral decisions, to be critical moral thinkers. Religion directly interferes on purpose. It's not like this is an accidental byproduct. Religion interferes on purpose with people's ability to make moral decisions about the world in which they live. Because not only is there somebody who has already made the moral decision for you, but hasn't given you all the answers for some whatever fucking reason, right? Has these religious expectations that you are supposed to live up to all of these kinds of standards, but has only given you a subjective evaluation of them that is interpreted a bunch of different ways, right? And so you are conditioned to never ever solve your own moral problems, to ever figure out what is actually morally right or wrong. Somebody's already done that for you, right? So you have this complete divorcial, not to mention the fact that you don't care about the world in which you live, because this is all just to get to the afterlife, right? So you don't care about poverty and homelessness and war-torn nations being war-torn, because that's all part of God's plan. We don't need to fix those problems, you see, because this is all trials and tribulations, and every place that everybody is, they deserve, is what Christians believe, what most religions believe, is that where people are in the world is something that they deserve. And that all they have to do is get through that and not be terrible people, and then there's pie in the sky after. And that's why religious people don't engage with morality at all. They don't engage with morality at all. They don't make moral decisions about what's right or wrong. That's decided for them. And they don't live in the moral world with the rest of us that has moral consequences that we need to be responsible about, because somebody's already figured all that out and there's pie in the sky. Any questions about how religion is not like morality at all? It's in fact fundamentally not at all. And this, I'm not mad at you at all, Leilani. I don't like a religion. And anytime I talk about religion and morality in context with each other, this is usually what happens to me. This is what I do. Morality that profess. Yeah. This was what the trolley problem you were talking about earlier, but it gives you a binary choice, good or bad. What was the trolley problem you were talking about? Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah. No, I'm following. Yes. Well, and that's it locks us into binary thinking. That's enough. Good point, Eleni. That's another problem with religion, is that religion removes the complicated context of moral situations and puts things into easy categories of good and bad, right? We have these clear, mutually exclusive categories, binary thinking about the way the world is and works, and thinking in binary terms isn't helpful in understanding the complexities of moral situations. Right, and this is morality isn't binary, and this is a really good point. This is one of the problems that leftists have in general. And one of the things that we have to be mindful of about in leftism is that we have a tendency to make good guys and bad guys out of like Che Guevara, right? Or Mao is I think a fantastic example, right? There are lots of people all over Twitch who glorify Mao, right? And I'm not saying that this is bad, but it is an oversimplification, because Mao wasn't a good person. Mao did awful, terrible things. Some of his philosophies are pretty legit, and a lot of the things that Mao did are very valuable for us in learning about those things and learning the kinds of strategies that work and don't work, right? But it's a mistake in a lot of cases for us to put people up on pedestals, you know, when people aren't good or bad. People aren't good or bad, right? They're not. People are complicated. And this is why in Struggle 4, Marcus is always saying, don't like anyone. There's not a single politician that you can like, because they're all ghouls. Even if they've got good positions on healthcare or welfare or on Palestine, or, I mean, most of them don't have good positions on any of those things, but even if they did, they're going to have some other terrible position on some other thing, or eventually let you down, right? This is true of all your heroes. The more you learn about your heroes, the more you find out that they are not worthy of your worship, generally. Anti-American, automatically good. Yes. Right. Yes. That is a really good example. That's a fantastic example too, Eleni. I think that's very true. And I find myself sometimes getting locked into that kind of camp too. And this is the dogmatism. When let me go back to our thing. One of the things that we were trying to avoid, right, in trying to figure out what it means to be leftist, is we're trying to avoid dogmatism. We're trying to avoid adopting aesthetic for aesthetic's sake, right? We're trying to avoid adopting policies because they have always worked for us. We need to be more sensitive about our material conditions. We need to be more flexible. We need to be the kinds of beings that we need to be in the time and place that we are, not let ideology determine who we are, right? That's the goal here. We want to not let ideology or dogma determine how we are, and therefore the kind of future that we build, because that's the lesson that we get from means ends unity, is that the future we build is what we are building right now. So we have to be mindful about not being dogmatic about certain things. I find myself having to separate from people who are apologists for the Chinese and Soviet imperialism. Right. And you know, I love the Soviet aesthetic. I really do. They have a lot of really amazing art. You know, but also there are a lot of apologists who don't want to have conversations about the gulags, right? Despite the fact that there is a legacy. One of the things that leftists don't like to talk about is there is a legacy of trauma that have been left behind by some of the actions of the Soviet Union. And that legacy of trauma is something that still comes up. I've encountered recently in conversations, right? So it's a real thing. Wizard Spread Book, good to have you in. Welcome. Two groups that can do bad things if there are different spots in the spectrum. I think anti-imperialism is the better way to go for sure than trying to just be anti-American. And it being anti-imperialist gives you a different kind of lens, right? That understands that China, and that's we're talking about good guys and bad guys. I'm not trying to get too far behind in chat, but I just don't want to forget this point. But there are lots of things that we can look to China and say they're doing a great job. There are lots of things that we can look to China and say that they're doing a great job, and we should be able to do that. But we also need to keep in real context the fact that China is an imperialist state who is and has been doing imperialist things. Right? Two things can be true at the same time, and that this is absolutely that situation. Being anti-American isn't being anti-American being anti-state, not necessarily. And that's being anti-imperialist gives us a broader perspective of how states work with each other and against each other to create the kinds of conditions that we have to endure, right? As opposed to thinking from an American perspective. If you're only thinking from an anti-American perspective, you might be perfectly fine with, as long as the United States isn't sending troops into other nations, and as long as the United States isn't actively sanctioning, you might not care about the goings on in the Congo or in Myanmar or right. And I'm not saying that that's your perspective, but being only anti-American is a more ego-centered perspective that neglects the suffering that's going on around the globe, and that this is a way that you are alienating yourself from other revolutionaries in other countries who are just like you, who are actually just like you. But you don't see yourself as being just like them because the national perspective gets you to not understand that it's us against them, right? Without nations, sans the national borders. Tenekoe, welcome in, Kimatara. Oh yeah, okay. Material conditions determine reality. Yeah, and I am not well versed enough on the history of gulags to have a back and forth about whether or not they were good or better or worse. I'll just have to take your word for it, because I haven't yet done that part of my leftist journey, is to do a deep dive into the historical records and the ongoings, because we're talking about decades, right? We're talking about a long span of time. Lots of different people are in charge, lots of different frameworks for how these things, and I don't know about the nuance there. I know that there is nuance there. I just don't really know it yet. Like I said, I haven't personally done that deep dive. I have a link on the crime thick article. If you want, sure, drop that in chat. Kind of fun read, but it reminds me of Ludwig Wittgenstein's Ladder. Okay. You thought that you and I would disagree on China, Matt? That's interesting. I mean, there are pros and cons. Good and bad is not helpful thinking. When we are putting especially whole nations into easy categories of good and bad, we are making mistakes in reason. That's just not the way to think about reality. Yeah, and that's a pushback that I think is absolutely fair too, Eleni. Gulags are terrible, but capitalism at its peak is worse. Yeah, technically the gulags were not great, definitely immoral. But is the American prison system today worse? Also, yes. Right. That's that. I got a seed ground where I got a seed ground, and that's me seeding ground. Good. Thank you for the link, Wizard's Bread Book. Did you end up reading my Liberalism is the Alt-Right Pipeline article? No. Can you link that in, Kimatara? I've got your Self-Help for Revolutionaries. Is that not your most recent one? You are writing articles way faster than I can keep up with them. I love it. Don't stop. Don't slow down on my accord. But been quite busy. I missed a couple of lives. Yeah. Hey, there we go. Yeah, same, Matt. Well, and that's one of the things that good. There's a few things that I want to touch on that have to do with some of the previous streams that we've talked about, and one of the things that I think my closed captions have disappeared. Sorry. Don't know why this has been a problem. PubNub, wake up. Hello, quick, before I forget what I'm going to do. Okay, I'm just going to have to reset this. And that's a bummer. Okay. I really wish I could figure out what was going on there. But, okay, one of the things that I wanted to touch on is that it's helpful, right? This connection that Matt and I have just had, where we thought that maybe, Matt said, I thought that maybe we would have differing views on this, but it seems like those views are in concordance. This is really helpful for us, right? This is social coherence. This is how we come to understand our own ideas as intelligible, good ideas, right? When we hear other people saying the ideas that we already have is something that is very helpful in affirming for our identities. And it's something that we've touched on a few times here and there on the last few streams, but I wanted to make this explicit, right? I wanted to draw all of you all's attention to this is the reason why you are on Twitch. This is the reason why you watch leftist streamers, is so that you can be more confident in your own ideas and values. Right? When you see other people agree with you, or when you see other disagreements that make you go, well, maybe I need to reconsider, right? These are good and healthy and helpful for us establishing our identities. And we should look for we should look for instances of coherence. But we should not be dissuaded when there's not coherence, right? It's just a different kind of good, right? Because good and bad is not generally, right? It's a different kind of learning. It's a different kind of interaction with each other. Sometimes the interaction is us building each other's confidence and helping to establish our identity together with solidarity and a conformity of ideas, right? Sometimes it's us pushing against the ideas of each other so that we can all be better for it, right? And both of those are healthy engagements. It's just sometimes it's coherence and sometimes it's difference, and both of those are good or advantageous so long as you're paying enough attention and you're open to that. But this also has to do with joy. I wanted to bring this up because on one of the previous streams, it occurred to me that some of you were making a joke that I missed when I was talking about the liberals just want to get back to their comic books and their video games and their movies and their TV shows. Some of you were making the leftism is when no fun jokes in chat, and I kind of missed it. And I just wanted to speak to that a little bit, that I do have a tendency to get kind of in that, to speak that way sometimes. Right. And I appreciate you all being there in chat to make the joke and to make it more explicitly clear to those who are viewing, hopefully, that leftism is not when no fun, right? That we will have video games and music and movies and all kinds of art in a socialist or communist world. People will still do those things. Turns out, you can't stop people from being creative, right? And that is a conversation that I don't have enough, is the conversation about joy and the joy of revolutionary thinking and the joy of the revolutionary world that we're trying to build. It's not just utopia, it's a world in which you have real freedom. And that includes freedom to create, freedom to enjoy consuming, right? It just won't be consuming the way that we are used to thinking about consumption. Good. Those are just two quick asides that I wanted to have that while I was thinking about them. I got to back up some. The fundamental difference between liberalism and fascism is that fascism is just when liberalism is in the process of shrinking the in-group. Yes. It's right. It's a system that's a sliding scale. It's a spectrum rather than a binary system. It's a spectrum that is. It's kind of a bit of both. But not in equal parts, necessarily. You guys are talking back and forth. You thems. Can't tell. you how many places I've been banned for in this app for uttering that China does imperialism. Really? I mean, I guess I'm not that surprised. But yeah, it's well, and it's the one of the problems that I have with Juche. Juche is like I was talking on stream the last time it came up. A lot of those comrades are comrades who have really great material analysis, but some of those people are kind of not ready to critique nationalism, not ready to critique certain positions, right? Yeah, and that's so sad that you've just been outright banned for that, because that shuts down the dialogue, right? And that's something that I wish that more spaces could be open to, is engaging in actual dialogue. I understand the internet is a terrible, disgusting, evil place with lots of awful people. I get that, but that doesn't mean that we give up on communicating. Come on. Hey, welcome in, Curse Chaos. Great to have you, Jane. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. Back from renewing healthcare coverage. Yay! So you got healthcare coverage. That's fantastic. Congratulations. I hope it wasn't too much of an arduous task. My article is essentially looking at it from someone who was a liberal, who has seen people go down the alt-right pipeline, and how, besides the progressive veneer, fascism and liberalism is almost identical. Good. Yeah, let's we'll hop into that in just a minute. Like testing ideas and taking in information. It's like crafting. Yeah, actually, I mean, I completely agree with that. Yeah. There's time for play and time for work. Yeah. Yeah. In some ways, leftism will be way more fun. You won't have to pay for your video games. You won't have to. You could just watch movies if you're interested in. You don't have to pay $50 to get in to watch the movie, or however much it is to watch movies these days. Well, and people will make art for art's sake. Think about the different kinds of movies that we'll see. If people are not trying to make movies to make money, but are trying to make movies to make actual artistic expression, right? That will completely liberate them to do all kinds of amazing, creative, and thoughtful things that will actually transcend the limited ways that we understand the world. That's one of the beautiful things about art. Is it really is a doorway to outside of the box thinking that completely doesn't work in capitalism. Art doesn't exist in capitalism. Only products. And that's a sad reality that I'm coming to understand. I'm not 100% sold on this claim, but it's hard to refute. There are no artists making art in capitalism. There are only people making products that they hope are consumable, right? You have to appeal to an audience, and if you're not appealing to an audience, anyways, yeah, nationalism is nationalism, absolutely. Hot take, Lenin, Stalin, and Mao weren't communists. I mean, it might be a hot take, but I think that I don't think you're going to get much pushback in this room, in this space. I don't think that anyone's going to disagree with you on that, actually. The way that Mao ran Mao's government, it wasn't very communist. I mean, and Mao said it can't be, right? And had great justifications for explaining why it can't be. I don't think that all of those justifications are actually justified, but whatever. I wasn't the one making the material decisions in the material situation, so I can only judge so far. I do judge, but I can only judge so far. Try to keep this in perspective. Art is a product in capitalism, always, necessarily. And as long as the person is living in capitalism, they can't actually be an artist. They are just a producer of products. And again, I'm not 100% sold on that statement that I just said. I'm not but I'm like 99.4, 99.8% sure so far. There's some things that I want to push back on later when I've got the time to have that thoughtful rabbit hole. All right, so let's pull up this one. I do want to shout out this article. Please read it. We're not going to talk about it today. I'd planned to talk about this article today, but we're going to talk about this other one instead. Yeah, that's the right one. Hey, welcome in, Bellatrix Fairy. Good to have you. Good to see you. Hope you're having a good day. Okay, so that's not what I want you all to see. Hey, there we go. Still doesn't look quite right, but we'll fix that in a minute. So let me link this real fast in So read this. This is one of Kai Matara's other articles. Please read that. We'll talk about that on the next stream, I'm thinking. But we are going to talk about... Where'd it go? Oh, this is the thing that Wizard's Bread Book sent to me. What was that? I completely forgot about that other thing that you sent to me. Which is... You guys were having a lot of conversation. You all were having... Okay. So we might get to this. I gotcha. Yeah, I just I scrolled back up and got to it. Yeah. Hey, Bellatrix Fairy, that's so funny. I was, and that's the thing. There's a little bit in there. And that's the thing. If you're making art for somebody, right? And I don't mean a commission piece. If you, the artist, would like to make a gift for someone and they don't know that they are getting the gift and you make the thing for them, that's something that I believe is art. If you are making art for you and you have no interest in selling the art, right? And that might be a different kind of thing. So that's why there's that little bit of doubt about that statement that I was making, where I'm like, it's not 100%. There's a little bit. There's a little bit in there that makes room for some kinds of expressions of art. Yeah. And good. Thank you for bringing that up too. Oh, that's Eleni has said that up there already too. Be it artists under capitalism, most people don't hobby art; they sell it. Yeah, yeah. If you're hobby arting, that might be a different kind of thing.
Yeah. Look at all these slave masters posing on your dollar. Get it? Yeah. Look at all these slave masters posing on your dollar. Get it? Look at all these slave masters posing on your dollar. Get it? Look at all these slave masters posing on your dollar. Get it? Look at all these slave masters.
Okay, so I don't see the. I know what happened. No. Hi, Matara, you still here? I can't find the. I guess I can just scroll up here. Find the link that you linked. I thought that I clicked the link that you put. Aha, here we go. Never mind, I got it. Okay. So let's talk about the liberalism and the alt-right pipeline. Thanks for linking it anyways. For everyone who would like to follow along, go ahead and click the link. And if you're not already following Kimatara, do that. Because when they get more subscribers, they'll eventually get the voice, the text to voice thing, right? I don't know how many it's going to take, but okay. So during the I have got this thing. I'll use this.
Liberalism is the alt-right pipeline. During the 2020 election in New Zealand, I voted for Jacinda Ardern. She won by a landslide. I felt like I was part of something grand, that I am a Labourite. The thing is, and I didn't realize this at the time, as soon as that happened I had already become ankle deep in the alt-right pipeline. I know how that sounds. The far right hated her. How can she be a part of the alt-right pipeline? It's not what she does per se, but what liberalism does to us that makes it an alt-right pipeline. My slide didn't start with opposing her, but with the very logic that made my support for her feel so rational, so obviously right, that which made me.
I didn't see this, and I wanted to say something about that. Back that up in a minute. But I can't help feeling if they didn't live. This is Eleni. It says, I can't help that if they talking about me. Thank you for using my correct pronouns, by the way. I can't help feeling that if they didn't live under capitalism, they would be like twice as good at those things, and they might even have chosen different skill trees. True. Right? And this is something about our conditions that we need to understand are determined by our capitalist situation. And not accept that those things that have been are that way necessarily. They are the way they are because of what has come before and the conditions that have brought them about. So good. I like that. It's good. I think it's over 200. I need just to write a new article and hopefully it will show up. Okay, good. Good. I'm glad that you're getting there. Climbing up. I mean, the articles you write are really very thoughtful. So I'm not
much smarter than those stupid gnats. Or
not surprised at all that that you're already getting close again. Good.
I know how that sounds. The far right hated her. How can she be a part of the alt-right pipeline? It's not what she does per se, but what liberalism does to us that makes it an alt-right pipeline. My slide didn't start with opposing her, but with the very logic that made my support for her feel so rational, so obviously right, that which made me so much smarter than those stupid gnats or unrealistic greens. I was clearly the most reasonable one. The first path down the pipeline. Smug rationality. In pre-colonial culture, our gods were not some chaotic assortment of mythological beings, rather they had set roles and set abilities. These legends helped us make sense of the world. Reason in the form of Enlightenment liberalism came to our shores and told us, you savages are bound by myth. We on the other hand observe the rational world. Ignoring the fact that many of the settlers were religious, it positioned itself as having evolved beyond primitive stories into a pure state of scientific observation. Yet in doing so, it committed the very act it condemned. It anthropomorphized the world, reducing all of reality to the narrow faculties of human understanding. They aren't seeing the world purely through science or reason, as they claimed. They are seeing the world through the limited faculties of human logic and senses and determining it to be true, participating in the very primitive myth they denounce. Because to interpret is to relate the world to ourselves, to make it meaningful on human terms. The choice is not between animism and non-animism. The choice is between a self-aware, critical, and respectful animism that acknowledges its own perspective and leaves space for the mystery and autonomy of the world. Or a blind, domineering, and a self-aware, critical, and respectful animism that acknowledges its own perspective and leaves space for the mystery and autonomy of the world. Or a blind, domineering, and totalitarian animism that insists it is not animism at all, but objective truth. Think the soundbite, Facts don't care about your feelings and how it ignores that without feelings you cannot interpret facts. To claim pure objectivity is to erase the subjective human who is doing the claiming. It's a performative contradiction, a totalitarian animism that because it erases the subject it therefore has the right to subjugate all it surveys, including, eventually, human beings themselves.
This is so perfect. And I remember I'd read this previously before and had not had the opportunity to talk about it on stream yet. But I didn't realize just how well it would tie in. This is literally what I was talking about at the beginning of stream before you came in. I was talking about how our project of trying to determine what is a quote-unquote good leftist, right? This project of determining leftist perfectionism must be a project of identity by negation, because any kind of definition or term or phrase or any way that we come about trying to define what leftism is exactly this kind of death that you are talking about. This it's a termination of thought. It's a termination of creation, a termination of being. It is an end. It's not helpful for us to have these definitions of the world. These definitions limit our ability to understand. And I want to take this and transcend it back up much more to reinforce Kaimatara's whole point here. There is a tendency, and this is what Eleni was actually talking about earlier in stream too. There's a tendency for the worst humans to believe that they have the right answers and that they've got things figured out and that they've got an objective point of view and that they've got the right framework. And those people are the most willing to shove that down the throat of other people and to use violence against other people when other people disagree with them and their perspective and their understanding of the world. And this is the colonial mindset, that I know the way that I've got things figured out, the rest of the world is going to conform to me. And there's this kind of wanton entitlement that for far too long has been entertained by this notion that that anybody has the right idea, that we should be listening to anyone at all, right? This is an idea that we need to start moving away from. There's no one that we should be listening to. There's no one that we should be following. There's no one who has the answers. There's no one who's going to come and save you to fix all of your problems. Ones don't exist in the real world, and we keep chasing these ones and propping up these ones and electing these ones and crowding around underneath these ones who are going to continually misguide us because they are driven by ego. That's why they're up there. That's why they believe that way. And we have created a society that systematically rewards those most individualistic, right? Those most willing to abuse, those most willing to coerce, those most willing to trample the rights of others are the people who are most successful. And the reason is because the rest of us keep letting it happen. I hate to say that, but that's actually the case. Is that there are far too many people that believe that it's somebody else's responsibility. Far too many people believe that it's going to work itself out. It's going to be fine. That tomorrow is going to be fine as long as the ICE agents are kicking down my door. As long, right? Wake up! You're next! They're coming for you next! Anyway, let's get back to it. Yeah, trying to be perfect turns you into a religion. And that's exactly right. My yard would be so amazing without capitalism. Agreed. I think when right-wingers say that leftists get mad, but it's probably the only thing they're right about, yeah. If you, yeah. Multiple good ways, but a whole lot of bad ways, right? Well, and that's the thing. We don't want to tell people how they have to be, but we should help people avoid being the way that they ought not to be, right? Because we can't tell people what is the right way for them to be them. You know, you don't know how somebody else is or what's good for them, or right, you don't have access to that. But you can tell people, hey, that thing is racist. Hey, that thing is sexist. Hey, that thing is an ableist trope that perpetuates ableist ideas. Right? We can say there are things that you should avoid, behaviors, patterns of behaviors that you should avoid, right? We don't want to tell people how to be. There are things that you ought not to do, though, right? And that's accountability. That's a different kind of thing. And you know, again, going back to this, for those of you who weren't here for me to talk about this, right? Policing is not the right word either. Right, that's one of the reasons why we were having so much trouble moving forward in this outline, is the idea of policing each other in the first place. Policing is bad. Police are bad. All of them are bad, and we shouldn't be doing that to each other. But holding each other accountable it's a different thing entirely than policing, right? Policing means that there's a right way to do it and you're not doing it right. And I get to be an enforcer and I get to feel powerful by telling you that you're doing it wrong. And we don't need that. No, all of that's bad, right? What we want is people who care about each other and are willing to allow their compassion for others to overcome their own fears so that they can speak up, that they feel encouraged to speak up and say, hey, that's a racist thing. It's a sexist thing. Hey, that's it. Stop doing the thing, right? And so that we can hold our comrades accountable. Because they want that. I want that. If I say something racist, please tell me. Help me be better. If I say something that's ableist, if I say something that shuts any of you down, if I say something that makes you feel little or makes you feel not smart, tell me about that, because I don't want to do that and I want to be better. Right? Right? I want to be correctable. And that's how we be better as people, is by allowing other people to help us be better. But we also have to be willing to try to help other people be better too. That's all part of the process. And there needs to be personal responsibility as well as collective responsibility, 100%. I think that responsibility is this kind of thing. I'm getting really distracted, but Immanuel Kant would have said that responsibility is about what you do and how you hold others to account. That the reason why we should hold the debtor accountable is not so that this person pays back this person because we care about this person being square. Because that's not what Immanuel Kant cares about when he says that we should hold the debtor accountable for their debts. This is a person who has made a promise to the rest of us to do something. And if we don't hold that person accountable, we are not showing them the respect that they deserve as a person with ideas and with will, right? If we let that person break their promise, it is us demonstrating a lack of respect for their personhood by allowing them to break their promise. Right? By holding those people accountable to the things that they have said, we are giving them personhood. That's how we demonstrate that this is something that we actually give a fuck about. Is by doing it, by holding each other accountable. If there's no account, then there's no reason for anybody to care about any of this. Right? And that's the situation that we are in. We are in a world where there is no accountability. Pedophiles are running our country because there is no accountability. Laws against pedophilia don't matter. We live in a world where laws against pedophiles may as well not exist. There's no accountability. That's how we show respect for ourselves and for each other, is by holding each other accountable in this universal way. When I was right-wing, I easily jumped to the trans struggle and learned to default as they... Oh, that was something I did for the first time. I heard about it in high school. Actually, that's awesome. Welcome in, DJ Che. Thank you for the raid. It's great to see you. I hope you're doing well. Excellent. Everyone, go follow DJ Che if you're not following them already. They're a comrade, and they are just a pleasant human being to be around. Their stream is fantastic. Go check them out. Oh, and they do some video games too. I always forget that they are a video gamer. They do them video games too. All right, so let's get back to Kai Matara's article before I get way too much further off track. Thank you all for the robust conversation. I need to have another view thing happen. Hey, there we go.
This is the irreconcilable core that fascism exploits and apes. It is why so many fascists clumsily appropriate the imagery of pre-Enlightenment cultures of Romans, Vikings, and Crusaders. They sense the power of myth that liberalism denies, but they interpret it through liberalism's domineering, subjugating lens. It is the confused, brutal display of a mindset that claims pure reason while acting out a primeval story of conquest. You can see the path to this behavior in the very heart of the system that claims to have evolved beyond it, Parliament.
I had meant to expound upon Kai Matara's point here, and I forgot to expound upon Kai Matara's point here, right? This is the idea that one can be objective gives somebody the impression that they have the right to do these kinds of things. And there's a disconnect that Kai Matara is drawing attention to from people in the indigenous world who at first, when colonizers first came and first started to use their science and scientific terms, they were like, oh, well, okay, there's some authority to this. But it became very quickly apparent, I think this is Kai Matara's point, hopefully I'm not butchering this, that it quickly became apparent that this objectifying science was only a very limited way of understanding the world, right? This is what the colonizers thought that they had invented was a way to see the world, right? But what they had invented was a microscope for them to see only a very narrow understanding of what the world was. And they were using this very narrow understanding of the world as a bludgeon, right? Matt, thank you for the puns. Became apparent? So, yes, yes. Good. So let me get back to it.
We are told it is the apex of rational, European civilization, with two major rational choices, Labour and National here in New Zealand, Democrats and Republicans in America, and so on. Yet watch how these parties and their supporters and how I, as a new Labourite, inevitably devolved into raw tribalism, classism and conspiracy. As a Labourite I had a preconceived image of a national voter. Clearly they were a backwards, unenlightened, impoverished stupid people, and wait, something is wrong here. I was doing what was done to my ancestors. Not only that, but the class character I had of them was all wrong. Take the Wellington lockdown protest. Only 8.7% of the people protesting on Parliament grounds were from Wellington. Now travelling isn't cheap, neither is not working for a long time. This suggests that these were people with the economic means to forego work and absorb travel expenses, a clear indication of the event's class character, that being middle class. The class character is even more evident with the groundswell movement, where tractors were driven around the cities by farmers as a form of protest against farming regulations. It's not that any of these classes are stupid or unenlightened as I previously believed. Instead it's because the middle class are the most socially atomized and thus easily get whipped into conspiracy theories, fascist movements, and astroturfs that give them a false sense of community. You will often see the rich together, at clubs, galas. The poor too, through unions, their place of work, or food banks. But the middle class are nowhere near as socially connected to others of their class. Often they do not know anyone besides their wage laborers. They have no one to connect to until astroturfs and fascism give them some false sense of connection and security as a movement against the big business above them and the organized labor below them. Or as Trotsky put it, not every exasperated petty bourgeois could have become Hitler, but a particle of Hitler is lodged in every exasperated petty bourgeois.
Really good quote, but not what I wanted to draw attention to. This I think is just fantastically insightful, right? That there is so a part of the way that prevailing modern society is designed, especially in under capitalism. Prevailing way that society is designed to make you insecure on purpose, is to make you want to seek out a sense of identity because the identity that you have is not good enough, right? It's not good enough. You need to be able to express yourself in some better way by having to spend more money, ideally, by having to participate in nationalism, by having to participate in these rituals of social stability, right? And this is several things are all coming together, coalescing all at once. So like the problem that men have in the world right now, like especially in industrialized nations where men are unaliving themselves at an alarming rate and an ever increasing rate. Like not only are men the most likely to unalive themselves, the rate at which men are statistically doing this is increasing very rapidly, relative to other demographics, and has been. It's a problem, right? And part of the reason that that's a problem is because we have a society that on purpose makes you feel useless and insecure and not enough all the time, on purpose, so that you have to go out and you have to take nationalism and capitalism and the other things that the only things that the imperial core will give you, and that's your identity. And that's why it's so important for imperialism to crush indigenous identities. That's why it's so important for imperialism to assimilate cultures into a hegemony, right? If you live in America, but your ancestry is Irish, you don't get to be Irish. You're Irish American. If you're from Dutchland, you don't get to be Deutsch. You're German American. If you're from in America, you have to be. You have to be. If you don't play the game, if you don't participate, you will be punished. Right? And this is on purpose, is to erase or assimilate whatever parts of your identity remain from the land, or remain from culture, or remain from your ancestors. They want to erase or assimilate as much of that as they possibly can into the spaghetti that they are going to cram into the blender, right? There. Middle class easily become fascist because they are pawns, right? It's like the knight class. Noble landowners, but they have false sense of superiority. I think that's a really fantastic analogy is almost not the right word. It's the two situations map onto each other in a way that's so much more than an analogy. It's the same thing. It's just it's different names for the same roles. Yeah, the scary part is the men who unalive themselves don't have mental health issues. Well, they don't have documented. There's nothing in oh, what the fuck is the DSM? That's what it's called, right? Yeah. Diagnostic and Statistic Manual for Mental Disorders. Thank you. Yes. There's not going to be anything in the DSM, but what it is white fragility. What it is American fragility. What it is a culture that is designed to make you feel empty and insecure and not enough. Well, and this is another part of this that I guess we should tie in now, is that part of this has to do with individualism will never be enough. Right? But everything that you have been sold in modern culture is all individualism. There is no collectivism. There is no collectivism unless you actually are appealing to indigenous philosophy. Right? Western philosophy doesn't engage with any kinds of collectivism at all, except for as thought experiments. Just period, right? The only thing that you have is individualism. And no individualism is enough, because you do need others. You are a social being whose identity is determined by your interactions with others in the world. That's what makes being meaningful, is by being in the world of others, not your job, not your nationality, not any of those other things, right? Those identities are all superficial, and that's why they're unfulfilling. Is because we don't have any kind of sense of community in the United States. Anyway, and in most other industrialized nations like the United States. Maybe a fish with legs, but still, yeah. It's like more like that. It's not really an analogy, but it's more like that. Yeah, good. Let's get back to this. This insightful statement, I think, is just really, really on point.
Now on the other side, there were the Greens, more likable because they were more compassionate, but in my mind and in the mind of the Labour Party I supported they were far too radical and unrealistic. Labour's incremental centrist policy decisions were and are frequently justified as pragmatic or strategical, aimed at winning elections, but by focusing only on short-term feasibility and compromise, this kind of political action loses sight of the deeper purpose it should serve, meaningful systemic change. Rational calculation of what is achievable substitutes for critical thinking about what ought to be, making political actors complicit in reproducing the status quo regardless of how horrific that status quo might look. When what works...
I hate to keep pausing so much, but that's really quite on point too. That's going back to the any kind of appeal to dogmatism. Any kind of appeal to dogmatism is just going to be rational calculation, and this also ties in with Kiyomitara's other article about the conversation between nonviolence and violence, completely missing the point of the struggle of indigenous people. Right? It's concern for optics. It's more concern for the Overton window than concern for actual material conditions. That's right.
Replaces what is right, reason ceases to be a tool for understanding the world and becomes a mere instrument for securing power and serving self-interest. A pipeline to totalitarianism through an amoral logic that allowed something like the Holocaust to be carried out with scientific detachment and bureaucratic efficiency. Non-voters are kind of good, actually. Photo by John Tyson on Unsplash. Like many liberals I loathed non-voters, outside of national voters I blamed them for all my political woes. Repeating that tired old cliché, a non-vote is a vote for the right. The issue is my support for Labour was moving New Zealand further right than any non-voter because the non-voter shows something fundamental to human freedom. Dissent is necessarily a subjective act. Subjectivity cannot be calculated and so is intolerable to the ruling class. This leads to things such as surveillance states. They cannot just believe that you aren't revolting, they have to quantify it in a calculable way. You are not known as your name, but as terrorist agitator and so on. Once a group adopts an official ideology, its members are pressured to conform to that framework, dissent or questioning becomes a threat to unity. The result is that even if a party has 1,000 eyes they all look through the same lens. In contrast, an individual from the outside can notice what the collective overlooks or denies. If everyone...
That's a fantastic analogy. Right, that's what dogma does. It rather than having a diversity of viewpoints, it's a unity, and it's not solidarity. Unity and solidarity are two different things, right? And we don't need oneness. Rather, we as leftists need to reject oneness as much as we possibly can and accept instead diversity. But I was looking for a good opportunity to pause so I can address what Eleni had said. But you don't have to be useful to others to exist. You can just exist. Absolutely. Right. That's, we need each other. We need each other. We need each other, but we don't need each other to work or to perform or to do anything. We don't need anybody to. We need each other, and the solidarity is what we need. And it's not a matter of productivity or what you can contribute. It's we just need us. Well, points of unity, I think, do matter for political organization. And I think that's good distinction, Jane, because we don't want unity of thought, but we might want unity of purpose. We might want unity of tactics, right? We don't want us all to all think the same way, but we do want us all pointed in the same direction. So there is an important distinction to make there. I'll think more about how to frame, how to term, how to word, how to phrase the idea around this, because you're right. We do need unity of purpose. And
look at all these slave masters posing on your dollar. Get it? Look at all these slave masters posing on your dollar. Get it? Look at all these slave masters posing on your dollar. Get it? Look at all these slave masters posing on your dollar. Get it?
Unity in diversity. Yes. We don't even necessarily need the same ideology to have the same purpose, right? And that's what I mean. As long as we can have some kind of telos at which we are directed, and as long as that telos is conforming, right? But there are also other kinds of ideological unity that we will want to insist on. Right, we're not going to work with racist people, and I think that we all understand this. I'm just stating explicitly with a little bit more clarity what we kind of mean. Right, we need to be unified non-racistly. We need to be unified decolonially, or anti-colonially. There needs to be some kind of unity, but we don't need that unity to be very narrow. It just there are whole categories that we can easily exclude. Fascist, racist, sexist, ableist, these things that we can just omit, right? We can insist on a unity in that kind of way. But when it comes to how we feed people, right, that's not something about which we all need to come together and all agree that there's one way to do that, because there's not. There is no limit to the number of different kinds of approaches that we could take at feeding each other. So that's kind of what I mean, is we want to have some unity, some semblance, but we don't want that unity to be so laser focused that it becomes a lens, right? The result is that even if the party has 1,000 eyes, they all look through the same lens. That's with a lot of these ideas, it would be a mistake to think about any of these ideas in binary terms. Is, isn't, do, don't, yes, no, good, bad. These, right? What we need is to have some kind of nuanced understanding that is going to require that we balance a whole bunch of things, and that those things are all balanced against each other and can be flexible for when we need to shift things around and reorient, right? Because we want to avoid the dogmatism. That's the whole point here, right? We want to be able to hold each other accountable while avoiding the dogmatism. That's our purpose. Can you tell intersexually is my main ideology? Yeah. libertarian socialism, unity is key for our political organizations, and I think that that's true. That there needs to be that kind of unity. We need to have some umbrellas or totems. That's the word that I was using a long time ago. Right, that we would surround ourselves with totems, and those totems would be the kind of thing other people would want to come around and coalesce around, right? And those totems would be non-racism, would be housing for all, would be food sovereignty, would be access to healthcare, would be LandBack, right? These kinds of totems we place around our spaces, and we revere these totems, and other people are going to be drawn to those and want to work in solidarity with the things that resonate with what they believe and what they want to work towards. Welcome in, first-time chatter. The goal is to be unified. When there is a shared goal, and effectiveness can be achieved, but strong enough to still be effective, even when there's a divide. Interesting. Unified. Yeah, right. That sounds like it's concerned with balancing a whole bunch of different kinds of things. Right, exactly. Right, yeah. There's a ton of people on the right who just don't see why the system is racist, and the best we can do is point it out to them. Eventually, it might click. Well, the thing that I find works best for that is for those people to be engaged with the lives of others. There's nothing that you can show the white liberal. There's no article that you can give them. There's no documentary that's going to explain it to them. There's no argument that you can present to the white liberal that will help them understand the struggles of other people. For them to understand the struggles of other people, they need to see the struggles. It needs to be a part of their life. If it's not a part of their life, white liberals could not care less. And that's I hate that that's the reality. As those words are coming out of my mouth, they're disgusting and gross. But tell me I'm wrong. Right, there's for convincing the white liberal, that's what it requires is direct action, right? That's what I'm trying to get to. What it requires is propaganda of the deed. You might be able to get some awareness if you can generate enough energy to get certain kinds of programs going on in a neighborhood that are helping enough people, that has enough of a sway and enough influence over the infrastructure and direction of the town, such that the white liberal now has to pay attention to it. Right? That's why direct action and propaganda of the deed is one of the most effective tools for getting people to wake up to class struggle, is because reading a book or watching a movie isn't gonna do it. But if you bring it to their neighborhood, they will see it firsthand. And when you see direct action firsthand, where people are stepping in to help out the lives of people who are fucked by capitalism, it becomes very clear that people's lives are being fucked by capitalism and by racism and by sexism and by all of these other systemic issues that the white liberal is unaffected by. That's it. That's how you get the white liberal to wake up to the problems. Right, with ICE, that's exactly right. That's why the white liberals are finally starting to wake up, is because ICE is in their neighborhoods, knocking on their doors. That's exactly. I didn't even think about that. I hadn't made that connection, but there it is. Yeah, seeing it with your own eyes is the best cure for ignorance and racism. Yes, absolutely. We do need to develop a critical mass. I wish I had more insight on how to accomplish that, to be honest. But liberals don't care about others until their privilege is threatened. And that's what it takes. And I've mentioned this a few times. The struggle that we are waiting for in the United States, right? We want to get ready. Hold on. We really do have the material conditions for revolution in the United States right now. We really do have the material conditions. We have had the material conditions for revolution in the United States for, I want to say, at least a decade. We have the material conditions. But the biggest obstacle, from my material analysis, the biggest obstacle holding us back is the white liberal. Who on one hand recognizes their privilege enough to know that it's at threat, but are not willing to recognize what that their privilege is the reason why there's a problem, right? That's the liberal is in a situation where they are looking at their own privilege. They understand that their own privilege is the problem. And that's where we are. Do they want to give up their treats? Living in the imperial core has a lot of spoils. And I think that's where we are, is waiting for the rest of the white liberals to realize that their privilege is evil. Is the problem. Fear of losing something, missing out, how much is going to cost, what will it personally gain from this, right? So letting them lose in 2024 was the only way to change the lib stance. Oh, you're talking about something else, I think. I don't know, you white people seem more obsessed with seeing racism everywhere than the rest of us do. So, no. Really all I'm going to say about that, it is not the case that I, a white person, am trying to tell you that racism is a thing which exists. I am a college professor who has read hundreds, if not thousands by now, of studies on the race, the impacts of systemic racism. I've listened to hundreds of thousands of voices of oppressed non-white people going through my classrooms, expressing to other students about their difficulties and their struggles and their systemic disadvantages. No, it is not the case that white people are out here making a big stink about nothing. That is not what's going on. Just to be clear, I am amplifying the voice of others. I have recognized those people claim that there is injustice, systemic injustice in the world, and I'm trying to speak to that systemic injustice, which all of those hundreds of thousands of people through all of the hundreds of years that the United States has been around and being extremely racist has been complaining about the entire time that the United States has been around. Since day one. So, but go ahead and talk about you white people some more. That seems like it could be fun. Personally, I say liberalism is the last bastion of capitalism. I don't know. I don't know that there's enough substance of the statement that I would bother to disagree with it. I don't think that it's not an untrue statement. Right. But it kind of this misses out on things like fascism and white supremacy and other kinds of ideologies that are also bastions of capitalism. So there's I don't know. I don't think that there's a last bastion. I think that capitalism is extremely pervasive. It is so pervasive that there's no way that we could even begin to say that there's a last bastion. When we begin to have a globe populated by a majority of non-capitalist countries, at that point in history, then I think that we could start looking for last bastions of capitalism.
Yeah. Look at all these slave masters posing on your dollar. Get it? Yeah. Look at all these slave masters posing on your dollar. Get it? Look at all these slave masters posing on your dollar.
You're just talking about
look at all these slave masters posing on your dollar. Get it? Look at all these slave masters.
You're talking about making it palatable, right? You're talking about making it something that's bite-sized, digestible. And I don't know that there's advantage to that. I think that the so let's like slogans and sayings in general. Defund the police is, I think, a perfect example of a thought terminating cliche, something that is far too limiting. And it doesn't help us actually move the conversation. If defund the police were the kind of thing that could get us to have conversations about that we need to have mental health facilities and that we should probably have roadside assistance and that we should probably have other kinds of safety nets and mechanisms and outreach organizations and ways that we can establish security and safety in our neighborhoods, right? If it was a way to open the door up to those kinds of conversations, it would be perfect. But it doesn't. It's something that alienates people and shuts people down and is too limiting to encapsulate. And I think that you're not misguided in trying to do what you're trying to do or trying to say what you're trying to say. But I think that maybe we need something more nuanced than that, is the pushback that I would have there. Hey, welcome in, Trash Nomancer. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well. There's also state capitalism. Right. Martin Luther King Jr. saw the issue. Letters from Benjamin Jail, the white moderate. Yes, right. So giving the liberals more treats, like under social democracy, will lead to more resistance by liberals to not just get rid of capitalism, but to give people civil rights. Will lead to more resistance by liberals. Something about that I don't understand, but yeah, people have capitalism is so pervasive, people have an easier time imagining the end of the world than the end of capitalism. And that's right, that's a big part of this is we are envisioning a world that's a little bit far detached from where we are. But people are moving left only counts if they end on the left. Yeah. White moderate who is more devoted to order than to justice, who prefers a negative peace to which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice, who constantly says, I agree with you with you in the goal you seek, but I cannot agree with your methods of direct action. Right. Who paternalistically believe he can set the timetable for another man's freedom. Good quote. Thank you for putting that in chat, Trash Minister. I think it's pretty on point. Hard to find a clip that will pass moderation. Yeah, I know. Don't worry about it. And that's right. And Eleni, I don't want you to think that I'm disagreeing with you too. To be clear. Right, because you are not wrong. The liberal is an obstruction. You are not wrong in trying to find a way to make this palatable in bite size too, right? But somewhere that's kind of balanced. That's what I'm trying to get at. It is a really good speech. We have I did it a long time ago. Oh my God, I think I did it almost a year ago. It would have probably been February of March or last year, I think. Yes, and clarification. Right, yes. Yes. Good. Because we're really close to the end of Kayamatara's article. So let's wrap this up. We can,
has to take part in the totality, then no one has sovereignty. Through mass media, the political party creates a type of mass demand. In doing so, the voter has to choose from a limited number of options. But this very action of choosing predetermined options legitimizes the demand already created by the party. It is very much like having the choice between a Coke or a Pepsi, only more nefarious, as in election cycles you become the commodity. A human embodiment of exchange value, political power, vote, political power. Your vote is exchanged for political power, which is then used independently of you. Rather than vote, political power, vote, which would give one's vote, and voice, enduring use value. Nothing ever changes, not because of non-voters, but because of us. The more everyone is the same, the more solutions can be sold to them, the more solutions can be sold to them, the more problems that must be created to keep them engaged. One of those problems is scarcity. Cookie crumbles. You know that meme, careful that immigrant/foreigner wants your cookie. Notice how faux scarcity is weaponized by the far right to divide people and get one to act on bigotry.
That makes perfect sense, Eleni. And now I understand. You are using it as a present tense thing, but you're using it as a present tense thing as a function. And that was the reason why I couldn't agree with you, is because we are not in a place where capitalism is a last bastion anywhere. But I believe that you are probably right about those ideas, that it will be the last thing that is the thing that, right. And that makes sense. Phrased that way, it really does make a lot of sense. That it is what makes capitalism tolerable enough so that enough people are willing to turn a blind eye. I think that trash nomancer. Which one? But yeah, I think that clarifies. I'd say I wouldn't use too much jargon if I'm talking to normies, and that's another thing too, right? For sure. And that's why direct action and propaganda of the deed works better. If you bring the reality to people's neighborhood and they see you doing the thing, it's much easier to give them the language later to understand that this is direct action, this is solidarity, this is community building, this is how we work together to support each other, right? You can worry about the language and the jargon and the theory after they get it, because once they see it, that's the sublime, the authority of the sublime. When they see it, when they apprehend and understand, right, they'll need words to put to that, and then you'll have the terms and definition and philosophy to give them. Yeah, exactly. Once you can point out the problem, you are halfway to the solution, right?
Now consider my situation. I see Hipkins announcing 3 free doctor's visits. Sounds amazing, right? Well, yes, unless you're a disabled person needing more than 3. I've had people push back against my critiques of this policy, saying 3 visits is enough because you can get the sickness benefit. However, this admits the healthcare policy doesn't meet need. It shifts the cost to a capped, conditional welfare system that already requires medical proof form to access. It penalizes us disabled people for needing care, which contradicts the policy's own fairness claims. For those of us with severe disabilities and chronic illness, 3 free visits are consumed almost immediately by medication reviews, referrals, discharge paperwork, welfare renewal forms, and follow-up from previous hospitalizations.
It's like a month of care.
That's already 4, and these events are not isolated to once a year each either. Meanwhile, higher income people can receive the same 3 free visits with no scrutiny and no administrative burden, simply because they can pay beyond that threshold. The system therefore assumes trust where there is wealth and suspicion where there is illness. The stated aim of the policy according to Labor is to keep people well and out of hospital, yet for severely disabled people hospitalization is often unavoidable and recurring. After 13 weeks in hospital, benefit payments are reduced to a hospital rate of roughly $50 a week. That figure is treated as reasonable because food and accommodation are technically covered but rent is not. Landlords still expect payment. Power bills continue. Phones, internet, storage, transport, disability equipment, and so much more do not disappear simply because we are lying in a ward. The policy effectively assumes that disabled people can suspend their lives indefinitely without financial consequence. Under liberal incrementalist policies such as these, the rich man keeps his cookies, and gets a free one for show, while the disabled person, now starving, is told to be thankful for the crumbs. This crisis of faux scarcity allows the rich man to blame the cookie shortage and everything else that's wrong on, for example, migrants. I was lucky, I had already witnessed people around me get pulled down the alt-right pipeline, so I didn't fall too far down, beyond the classist bigotry. As soon as I saw something was worryingly familiar I went the other way, towards decolonial socialism, which is where I still am today, but my experience did teach me that rather than fascism being simply ultra-conservatism, it is more of a synthesis between conservatism and liberalism. It is liberalism's instrumental and pragmatic reason, stripped of its progressive ethos. Thanks for reading. If you enjoyed my article, please like and share and leave a comment telling me your thoughts. Nami I. Share. Leave a comment.
Good. Forgot to unmute it. That's right, I wasn't saying any words. Yeah, exactly. Decolonial socialism. Right. That's where we are. Right? What's the link to the yeah, let me pull it up for you. Thank you. Here. Yes, please, if you have not already liked this, go to Kimatara's Substack, like this, but also don't forget to subscribe. And share this with your friends so that you can get them more subscribers, so that we can use the embedded text to speech, which is way better than the free one that I'm using. Absolutely, thank you. Yeah, we've never been closer to fascism than we have under neoliberalism. Yeah. Okay, so I think that this really does a good job of capping things off. Just taking a moment to think things over in my head. Oh yeah. I wanted to say something about the Communist Manifesto too, and that's the Communist Manifesto was really not good communist literature. Revolution and State by Lenin is a much better, much more accessible introductory text. So that's, you might have more luck with that, Eleni, and you might have more luck sharing that. And it's so much easier. The Communist Manifesto's hundreds of pages. LM. There it is. I know how the alphabet works, I promise. This is right at 100. But there's a few pages after postscript to the first edition, explanatory notes and stuff like that. But State and Revolution is a much shorter. You know, I mean, it's bigger than a pamphlet, but not really. This is something that you can read in a weekend. Whereas the Communist Manifesto, for me, wasn't. It took me, I think, a month. I read the Communist Manifesto the first time when I was, I want to say, 22. And it probably took me about a month to get through it. And I also did not understand it. It gave me a picture of the kind of idea, right? The kind of world that Marx envisioned. It gave me a kind of picture into what Marx envisioned, but I didn't understand Marxism at all. I didn't understand communism even a little bit after having read the Communist Manifesto. It just wasn't helpful. I understand it without reading it. Yeah, you don't have to worry about it. That's the thing about the theory, is you don't really need to read. I would say there are some, well, with anarchism anyways, there are lots of authors that I would read or recommend to read, that are helpful for gaining insight, not because their theory is particularly sound, but like Malatesta, for me, opened up a whole lot of doors. Malatesta, it is how I came to understand what oppression really was and how it is kind of everywhere, right? And that framework for understanding the world in an anarchistic way is why I'm here, right? That came from reading Malatesta. But if you've already had all of those realizations, and that's the thing. So let's make an analogy, right? With reading Camus. If you read Camus, generally you're going to have one of two responses. Either it's going to affirm life philosophies that you've already figured out. You're going to see them in the text, and you're going to love the way that Camus expresses those ideas. Or you're going to read stuff and for a while not figure out why you can't understand what's going on until you cross that inflection point where everything kind of comes into perspective, and bam, that philosophy just kind of dawns, where it kind of trickles over, and so that's with a lot of philosophy, it's that way. I think that some people will read anarchism and go, I've already got all this figured out. That I already see the world through hierarchies and through oppression and through unjust frameworks. I see those things. Let's get to the point. Right, in which case maybe communism is what you would want to read, but it really is. It just depends on the individual. That's what I'm getting to. Had a question for the past few days, and that is, what is your conception of gay and neurodivergent, referring to your comment on everyone is a little, right, autistic. Good. Let's talk about that a little bit before we wrap it up. Good. So let's take this, copy, and okay, so it would almost be worth it to change the stream title to this, because this would probably get some clickbait. But I'm not really that worried about it. Yes, maybe we should stop using terms like proletariat and bourgeoisie, private property. And I think that there's some conversation to that, right? And that we do talk quite a bit about the need to be aware of our optics, right? Made the most sense to me. Oh, what made the most sense to you, poor boys? Oh, just kind of traveled blind till anarchism. Okay, gotcha. Made the most sense to me. Yeah, me too. With anarchism, it seems to be the way that my brain needs a theory explained. Read the words. The ego, I think, of the first poster in Terminally Divorced Man. Stirner. Oh, right. Well, that's what we've been talking about is the idea is dismantling those kinds of ideas over the last 2 or 3 weeks. I think that we've quite adequately dismantled a lot of Stirner's ideas, to be quite honest. I think a better way to say everyone is a little is every experience is on the spectrum. And that's that might be a better way to say it too. I don't think that is, it might be the way that I phrased it. But I think the way that I had phrased it is, I believe that everyone is on the spectrum. Because I believe that that neurodivergence is a spectrum, and all humans are on that spectrum. Yes, that is what I believe, is that neurodivergence is a spectrum, and that there are no humans who are not on that spectrum. That's what I mean, is that there's some small subset of people who we call neurotypical. Those people aren't normal. Those people aren't normal. Normal is a myth. Those people they just happen to have born with the neurodivergence that our society has been built for. Right? There's two things that line up there, but that doesn't have anything to do with the state of affairs. The supervenient is the complex philosophical term. There are two things that are lining up together that are happening at the same time, but that doesn't mean that those things are correlated. And that's kind of what I'm saying. I'm not saying that society is built for certain kind of people necessarily, or but that everybody's on the spectrum. Society is built for some of those people. It might be we're gonna deny that. Wizard's Bread book. Just choose a different word, one that is not gender specific. Please feel free to put that back in chat. It was a very valuable thing. I don't want you to feel like I don't want you to be part of the conversation. I just try to avoid the use of certain kinds of gendered language, making certain kinds of gendered associations with negative or derogatory language. If you could find a way to rephrase, that would be fantastic. Thank you. We can use all those terms in our spaces because we know them. Well, that. I mean, yeah, that's. I wanted to have a pushback against that, but I really don't. The reason why I wanted to have pushback, let me explain that real fast, is that there is some danger in developing in-group and out-group dynamics there, where some people are using some kinds of specific language, some people might feel excluded, right? So I was at first concerned with there being in-group, out-group dynamics with what you'd said. But now that I've thought about it, I don't think that's actually the case. And it wouldn't necessarily be the case anyway, even if it was. So you're absolutely right. We can use certain kinds of terms in certain kinds of spaces with certain kinds of people that we know understand. And I think it's very helpful because here's the Jakarta method. The Jakarta method is a good example. Somebody used that in a chat that I was watching earlier today. It conveyed a huge amount of ideas all in one comment that one chatter said one time, right? And there's a lot of stuff that comes along with that doesn't need explanation for all of the people who know what the Jakarta method is. Right, for those people who don't know what it is, it's their signal that they need to maybe look that up. Maybe they should know what that is. If they are not able to keep up with the conversation, right, that's not a reason for them to feel in the out group. That's a reason for them to want to engage and to get informed and to get the information. And right, so. I was going to have pushback, but then I realized that you were just right. You have to dumb it down, and I hate to say, right, and I don't like the word dumb it down because it's a little bit ableist too, but also I get what you mean, and I think that that's somewhat unavoidable. There's not a kinder way to say that, other than maybe, right, not using esoteric terminology, right, whatever, but how can there be neurodivergence when we don't know who the perfect human is? Right, and that's the idea of perfect is also a myth, right? That there's a right way to human in general, I think, is to misunderstand the human condition, what it means to be human. We are all, in my view, every human who has ever been made is perfect the way that they are. And when people act terribly, that has to do with the way that culture and society and history have been, less a reflection on the individual, right? Anyway, people are, and what they are is the way that they are. I define neurodivergent as a significant difference in neuroanatomical functioning. See, and this is good, but what would be the difference? Is it the case that there is actually a distinct difference in the chemical processes of the brains? And I think I've mentioned this study before. There have been a number of communication studies that have been done with neurodivergent people, comparing them to the communication styles of neurotypical people. And what those studies find is that these people's brains work the same way, quite similarly. They have different behavioral patterns that demonstrate, and some of those behavioral patterns work together, and some of those patterns are antagonistic towards other kinds of patterns. So if you take one neurotypical person and one neurodivergent person and put them in a room, they may have trouble communicating. If you put two neurodivergent people in the room together, they often have no problems communicating. They can adapt to each other's communication styles. They can pick up social cues from the other, and they don't have any problem with it. What it is the neurotypical has a certain kind of expectations, and for many of those people, they lack the flexibility of being able to adapt to different communication styles. Similarly, you have certain groups of neurodivergent people who communicate effectively and communicate to other people effectively, but can't communicate with certain other kinds of communication styles, right? And that's where the limitation is how people are conditioned to communicate and how flexible they are in adapting to other people's communication styles. But and as I said the last time I brought this up, I am not an expert on any of this. I am not an expert on neurodivergence or on brain chemistry or on behavioral science. I'm just a philosopher out here talking. I don't like Stirner much. I just respect how catty he was in his essay about other philosophers. And that's my favorite thing about Stirner, was his culture of engagement. I think that Stirner, and actually there's not much in his philosophy that I outright disagree with. Most of what I disagree with when it comes to Stirner really are his foundations. I believe that a lot of the premises that he uses are pretty spot on. I think that the way he argues is really engaging and positive, and was the opposite of toxic. Was naturally, organically healthy for furthering the conversations that were happening in philosophy at the time. But the problems that I have with Stirner are his foundations. The axioms that he assumes lead him to certain kinds of conclusions. And it's completely understandable why he comes to those conclusions based on the foundations of his argument. And that's where I take issue with Stirner, is there are certain fundamental differences in contrast Stirner with Proudhon, right? That's where Stirner goes wrong in every way, right? Proudhon has a much, in my opinion, a much more holistic, robust understanding of property and rights in general. Right? Keep in mind that rights have only been in philosophical discourse now for a few decades. Just think about that for a minute. All of you have always lived in a world where rights discourse has been a thing. It has already taken place. UN has already had the Declaration of Human Rights. Imagine living in a world before the word right ever existed. Right? Stirner is existing in a world in which rights as a philosophical idea has only existed for a few decades. Right? It's really, I have some critiques of Stirner, but I really like Stirner a lot. And I think his approach is really valuable and good, despite the fact that I disagree with him in a lot of ways. English is absolutely full of bigotry. It's hard to avoid using English. It's one of the things that I've complained about. I had a whole stream on it once, where I just talked about the inadequacies of English language to allow us to have conversations about liberation and about truth. The language itself is clumsy in dealing with those ideas in a way that makes it difficult, muddies the water rather than adds clarification. The more words you add on, it just muddies the water more rather than adding clarification. Anyone can take a simple idea and make it complicated. It takes skill to make a complex idea simple. I don't know who. Damn it! I was like, who made that quote? That's all right. I'll look it up later. That's a good one though, Trash. Do you think that neurodivergence is similar to a cultural difference, something we can learn to change anyway? Yes. Yes. I had to make sure that I thought that I understood you correctly. And if I understand you correctly, yes. Because it's not that it's similar to a cultural difference. It is a cultural difference. It is and that's what I'm arguing here. It is only a cultural difference. Brains work the way that brains work. And we have built society in a certain kind of way, privileging certain kinds of brains and the way that certain kinds of brains work. Right? And the idea of neurodivergence is something that we have, it's a social concept that we have cooked up to help make sense of all of those people that society has failed. That the people for whom society has not been built for. So it is, and that's the thing. It's I believe that if we don't descend into fascism and begin to carry out eugenics camps and completely obliterate all of the social progress that has been made over the last whatever. If we don't do that, if we survive this, then I think the realization that societies will have is that nobody is wrong, right? Because that's my issue with the neurodivergent or autistic label is that there's an implied wrongness or atypical, right? For those of you who are not following yet along, this is like Simone de Beauvoir's talking about womanhood as deviant. Man is accepted. Man is normal. Man is typical. Woman is the opposite of that. Woman is atypical. Woman is not normal. Woman is not just accepted, right? And this role, this definition, this category of deviant is thrust on women whether they want to accept that social role or not. So they may as well take up the role of deviant and determine for themselves what that is, right? It's rather than accepting their definition as simply not man, women need to pick up their role as deviant, live that role, and make that role whatever they think it ought to be, right? That's the Simone de Beauvoir argument about gender. And I see this distinction as very similar. It's society's way of saying, you don't fit into the capitalist mold. You're not behaving the way that we want you to. You are not recreating society the way that we want you to. There's something wrong with you. And I don't like that idea because people aren't wrong. The way that we have built society is wrong. That's what's wrong. There's nothing wrong with anybody's. Well, there are people who have actual things wrong with their brain, but that's not what's wrong with people who society labels as autistic. There's nothing wrong with those people's brain. They work perfectly fine. The way we have built society is wrong and doesn't work for some people, and this is us blaming the people, blaming the victims of a society that has been built wrong, rather than accepting that society has been built wrong and we need to do something about society. We label those as others. And that's what I see, right? And that's how I feel about it. It's othering. It's othering needlessly, helplessly, pointlessly. It's not right. And I do want to be clear. There are many ways that that labels can be helpful and beneficial and good. Right, that there are people, and that's why I don't want to be too antagonistic about this right off the rip. For people who find autistic communities helpful for establishing their own identity and for understanding the world that isn't built for them, right? That those people have communities that they can come together and they can call themselves things and label themselves such. And to that degree, that is fantastic. And I don't want to naysay that, and that there are people who are coming together under a label. If it's helpful and beneficial for them and establishing their identities, fucking awesome, right? But that's in general, by and large, what I see the world doing with this term is it is an othering. That it has the baggage, the othering of it is not normal, it is not desirable. And I disagree with that. I believe that those people have perspective that will make the world a better place. And I want those people's perspective to be taken as seriously as everybody else's. And I think that when we have labels that allow others to otherize, that's often not helpful in including everybody in the conversation, which is what I want, as I want everybody included in the conversation. Good. What I'm saying good too is Elaney had made a point. Problem with leftism is we can't look at things objectively. And then Wizard's Bread Book had a point. I don't think that's the problem. It's a problem with cultural hegemony, and we desire that that kind of simple comparison. Good. Yes. Good. Yes. Good conversation. You know. Good. Good disagreement. Good back and forth. Because yes, the quote is probably an evolution of any intelligent fool can make things bigger, more complex, more violent. It takes a touch of genius and a lot of courage to move in the opposite direction. Okay. Schumacher, E.F. Schumacher. Okay. Thanks, Trash. I appreciate you doing a little bit of research to try to dig for me. Good on you. Appreciate that. Moralization of poverty, the moralization of neurodivergent. Right. Yeah. And that's the same kind of thing. It's another kind of ableist labeling. So, and that's the other thing, the other side of ableist labeling is that is why people are able to get accommodations. Right. And so that's why I'm trying to not be too antagonistic or militant about this. Right. I could echo concerns of the deaf community. So I'm not a part of the deaf community. I just have some exposure and contact with the deaf community. And most people, or I shouldn't say most, I have heard an overwhelming sentiment from my personal experience in the deaf community that people who are deaf don't just dislike being called disabled. They consider it insulting, right? Because there's nothing, right? It's not their fault, or there's connotation with the word that is unfavorable to them. So they don't like being called disabled or being labeled as disabled or being spoken of as having disability. However, that is how I, as a professional instructor who works at a professional institution, am able to make accommodations legally so that I can do things differently for this particular student that I don't do for all of my other students. Right? So there's a bit of both sides that I feel that's in this too. I don't like ableist labelings. And I feel that autistic is one of those kinds of things that limits people and puts them in a category that they don't necessarily get to control, right? And that's but at the same time, if we are able to give people accommodations and are able to use this language in a way that we can restructure the way that we've built culture and society, then the language is good, right? It's not a good or bad thing. It is, and we just have to figure out what to do with it. They need accommodations. They still have ability. Right. Exactly. Probably resistance to being called disabled because historically disabled people are murdered by the state. Right. There's lots of connotations, lots of bad baggage, that cultural baggage that comes with these ideas. And that's, it's not as though people make rational judgments about how they feel about the world. They have feelings, and when they are exposed to facts in the world, those facts care about their feelings. And so the way that they make judgments is based on a whole bunch of things that they don't always have a critical lens at looking at, right? This is what we were talking about on last stream. You make judgments about the world before you realize that you've even seen something. You make judgments pre you making judgments about the world. And that's part of that process. Before we thrust labels on people, we need to destigmatize disability. And that's I think a much broader point that I think is also has some great value here, right? Jane brought this up, and then they're not even. Jane, are you still here? I hope we didn't run you off. Maybe they just have a connection issue. But wanted to get more of Jane's input. That's all right. I'll ask Jane about it the next time she's in chat. But I'm about to wrap this up. I'm gonna get caught up with chat real fast, but my bladder is at 100% capacity, and I need to find a raid target before we get to 101. Label. Yeah, and that's another. It's really difficult for me to avoid that trash nomancer. It's one of the things that I really try to be mindful of, and a lot of times when I begin to talk about disability, you might catch me stepping on my words a little bit and stumbling, and that has a lot to do with it, because I'm constantly trying not to sound patronizing or like I'm infantizing, or right. I really am pretty conscious about that. Oh, that's why Curse Chaos is having a conversation there. Also, my definition of gay, I missed that. Of gay or homosexual is a monosexual sexuality in which one is attracted to people of the same gender as themselves. My definition of gay or homosexuality is a monosexual sexuality in which one is attracted to people of the same gender. Okay. No, and that completely makes sense. Mine is complicated. Okay, so the first difficulty with mine is it seems to be fluid. So it shifts and changes from season to season. It's not really season, but it isn't always the same. Probably the most, well, for me, it's what's the word? Space on it every single time. A sapiosexual. I'm a sapiosexual. For me, there has to be an intellectual and or emotional connection. That's for sexuality to be a thing I am concerned with, right? So there are body types that I am that I am more or less attracted to, right? There are some body types I'm more or less attracted to. Those body type typifications don't have to do with genitalia. And it doesn't have to do with my ability to fit or not fit with those genitalia, right? It's my attractedness to them does not include me as a part of that equation. It's something that if somebody has a physical characteristics that is the kind of person that I might find attractive in a sexual way, and also there is an intellectual connection, and because I need to have the emotional too. For me, it's there. I can't just have sex with somebody. I've never had casual sex in my entire life. I have never had sex, friends with benefits. For me, there has to be lots of things that all line up, and intellectual and emotional connection. If that isn't there, you're just a pretty body. And there's lots of pretty bodies, and pretty bodies are not what I want to have sex with. That's so maybe that isn't okay. Maybe I did an okay job of talking about that. Yes. This conversation is so great. I almost don't want to leave the stream, just let you all just have this all amazing conversation you're having. The meaning of the words, having vision that requires glasses or contacts is a disability. Yes, right. Good point. Wizard's Red Book. We'll be writing an article eventually called "Decolonialization is the most neuro-liberating thing you can do." Right. That's going to be a good one, Kaimatar. I can't wait to read that. As an autistic person, I hate eye contact. Customs in Maori culture are so affirming that it comes to it, for example. One of the many cultural misunderstandings to do with manners relates to the way people look at each other. Pakena. Children are taught to look people in the eye to show trustworthiness, interest, and undivided attention. Maori and Samoans often think that it is rude to look at people directly because to them it suggests a challenge and encourages conflict and opposition. So they may fix their gaze elsewhere or even close their eyes. Huh. Pakena may may read this as rudeness or shiftiness. Huh. Yeah, and that's different communication styles. There are different communication styles, and sometimes those styles work together, and sometimes those styles are antagonistic. I think that's a pretty good example of that. Thank you for sharing that. Being non-binary isn't one thing. Right. Being non-binary isn't one thing. That's kind of my issue, is that I'm not one thing. I seem to shift. I ebb and flow in directions, and sometimes I do feel very masculine, and I feel like I want to plow some bottom, and sometimes I don't. Right. So sometimes I don't feel masculine, and sometimes I want to be the bottom. And what I want doesn't necessarily correlate to how I feel as how I am, right? And that's one of the difficulties I've had in navigating, is it seems that I have two different moons, and sometimes those moons line up, and sometimes those moons are completely separate, right? And trying to figure out what's going on has been a little bit complicated because they won't stay the same. Nothing will stay still. But all right, so you guys are having such a fantastic conversation. I'm gonna go use the restroom. Keep putting awesome things in chat, and I'll be back in a minute. Oh, and actually, I've got something. I've got something to keep you all busy. I found this video earlier today, and it made me laugh. I think it'll make you guys laugh. You can enjoy this while I'm using the restroom. I got back just in time, right at the end of that song. Yeah, something that's cool. You know, I think that I have seen that video before on somebody else's stream before, but it just popped up on my YouTube feed and I was like, that looks really familiar. I'm gonna click it and see what happens, and that was the video I watched, and so now you had to watch it too. Let's still leave that up for now. I was looking at gender fluid at Target, and it turns out they don't carry it. They must have dropped it when they axed DEI. Oh, gender plasma is where it's at. Oh no, women can absolutely be mommy dummies. Yes, I am gender fluid. It's again something that I really haven't quite figured out, and I mentioned this on stream, maybe the last stream or the stream before that, but there's a lot of exploration with myself that I would like to engage with. But I spend so much time doing my job and then all of the rest of my time just trying to survive that I don't really have much leisure where I sit around and just think about myself or how I want to, right, what kinds of things I might be more or less drawn to. It's just, I wear what's comfortable and I look how I look. Would I like to wear makeup and do my nails and wear more feminine things sometimes? Yes. Yes, sometimes I really want to do a lot of those things all the time. But I don't have frameworks for adopting those kinds of things or incorporating those kinds of habits into the lifestyle I already have. And I don't have the time to go looking for other stuff. My plate is always full. My plate is always, I have stuff to do all the time. So I don't spend much time self-exploring. I would like to, but until my material conditions change, I just really don't. Citizen White hat passing. But I mean, but Matt, it's okay that you have privilege, and you shouldn't feel bad about this. This is one of those funny leftist things. There's no reason for you to feel bad about having been born the way that you are born. Right? You have done nothing morally culpable. That you have privilege is not something for which you are morally condemnable, right? And because you use your privilege, your relative privilege, to advocate for those who can't advocate for themselves, or right, you do things with your privilege to undermine your own privilege, which is amazing. So yeah, you weaponize it. That's right, exactly right. Using mirror pronouns for a bit really helped me finding some I liked. Okay. Mirror pronouns. So you're just pronouncing back whatever somebody else is? Is that what that means? Or just looking in the mirror and practicing them, probably. That makes more sense. I don't know. What do you mean, instead of me just guessing? I see every single day how others are treated differently because I'm the one treated better. Yeah. Right, exactly. In the queer majority umbrella, I'm Ida, Kore. The closest English word is agender, but that doesn't really do it justice. Okay. Well, it's, is it comparable to two-spirit? Before I say too much more, let me clarify that I have some experience speaking with some indigenous people about their experience as two-spirit people. I don't have that same kind of grounding or ancestral heritage to lean on so far as my own experience, right? So it's sometimes I am tempted to identify with two-spiritedness, but there's some kind of disconnect there that sometimes I'm a little bit worried about. But anyway, with two-spirit, it's a kind of being that is both. It's not well, right, it's a perspective that does have both perspectives. There's a male perspective and a female perspective, and two-spirit people have both of those perspectives of the world, is one of the ways that it's been expressed to me. Is that the kind of agender experience that you mean, or is it a different, or in what way is it different? If you don't mind being put on the spot there, I'd love a little bit more explanation there. Mirror pronouns is asking people to use the pronouns they use for themselves when they refer to you. Okay, I gotcha. Yes, I mean, that is a really good tactic. Yeah, absolutely. I could definitely see that working, because there's something that happens when you're called a thing. And I've talked about this. There's a group of friends that I really love, that I enjoy spending time with, but is sometimes hard, because that group of friends doesn't see me as a they them, and they don't call me they them, and when I'm hanging out with them, they refer to me in third person all the time to each other, and so it sometimes is really uncomfortable in those spaces, because they do regularly misgender me. And then one of the things that I've talked about, one of the experiences that I've talked about on stream, is if I've spent time with them in that group of friends and then I leave, sometimes it's hard on me. I will catch myself misgendering myself, because they have a habit of calling me this, and now I have picked up that same habit, and will then make mistakes in referring to myself, or that the thing that I talk about is when I answer the phone. And someone says, "Is this?" And I say, "This is them," right? And sometimes I misspeak and say, "This is him," and it makes me feel gross, right? It feels wrong. And it didn't when I first started using different pronouns. I didn't notice when people called me him, because it's like breathing air. But then when I came out, my friends supported me, and I've got a good group of people that does a really good job of always affirming me and referring to me by my preferred pronouns. And when I'm with those people for an extended period of time and then go out in public and get called him, immediately it feels wrong. Immediately I notice it. Immediately there's something there. But when if I'm hanging out with that group of friends and I'm called him at a restaurant, I don't, it's not the same kind of experience. It's difficult. You all know. You live in the world with others. Wholeheartedly, people like Stephen Miller, Donald Trump, Tucker Carlson, they're privileged and they use it for evil. Yeah, there are a lot of people who do misuse it. That's true. Powerful when white people realize they have privilege and don't feel shame. Right, that's, white people tears can get people fucking killed. White women tears get people killed. Emmett Till is a classic example that that's what white privilege is. That's what white privilege does, is what happened to poor Emmett Till. Agender is a lack of gender. So it wouldn't be two-spirit, probably. Yeah, you're right. And I knew that. But anti-mirror pronoun is also kind of chaotic and fun. So the opposite, right? Yeah, that would be kind of fun. But because of people not liking the singular they, I get a lot of power out of using they, its, because people don't want to use it, its, either because it's a neopronoun or they don't want it, its to a trans person. Then they have to figure out how to conjugate they. Correct them every time until they feel uncomfortable. Yeah. I'll at some point I'll probably, well, it really is a problem. It's kind of worked itself out. I won't go into too much detail, but that's a group that I'll be spending less time with anyway because of things that have just happened naturally. But it's something that sometimes I feel inclined to do, Jane, and sometimes it's just it's so like it's exhausting. First time chatter. Kukener. Can you say something relative to the conversation that's happening in chat? To chat? Can you engage with the conversation? Because if you can't engage with the conversation that we're having, I'm just going to assume that you're a bot. But we're having a conversation, and it doesn't have to do with the question you asked. So, pretty much choosing to use it is a secondary pronoun feels like reclaiming a slur. Well, that's Doe used to say the same thing about it. There's an uncomfortability that it forces on others. There's an uncomfortability that using its pronouns forces on others, that makes them confront, right, in gender, that makes them confront gender in a specific kind of way. Or, well, it makes them confront being in a different kind of way that often makes them uncomfortable. And that is really empowering. Like reclaiming a slur. I think the best description is it like a tornado. A tornado is not simply dust and air, but the process of spinning. It is an essence. I see. Well, before I say I see, let me think about it for a minute. let me think on that for a minute, but at the same time, not fixed into determinate essence. Okay. Good. Thank you for adding some more clarification onto that. Hakana, meaning NZ Europeans. Okay. New Zealand Europeans. Hakana. I think you've told that word to me before, Kimatara. Thank you for your patience in offering me lots of explanation and lots of information. Ira Kore. Like a tornado is not simply dust and air. So Iokore is like a prior gender or pre-binary. So, kind of like how a dance isn't just one movement, but the progression of movements, and that the order is an essential part. Fantastic. Okay. Nice, Matt. That's cool. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. For me, anything other than he, him is fine with me. That's same, Jane, actually. That's very much the way that I feel about it too. I've been called her a few times, or she, and I don't, not only do I not mind it, I kind of love it. Not so much that I want to be called that all of the time, but when I am mistaken for a her or she, it really is kind of gender affirming. I guess is a good way to say it. Oh no, Wizard's Bread book. What got? Oh, I'm gonna allow this. I I hope that doesn't unorder the thing. When I allow it, I think maybe it does change the order. I hope that doesn't mess up the conversation that you're trying to have. First time chatter, tell us how gay you are. Please. First time chatter, tell us how gay you are. There is a wrong answer. There's lots of right answers. Tons. And there is a wrong one. I'm claiming it's for myself too. Good. I like the it pronoun. My gender doesn't, or at least shouldn't, affect the discussion unless it's kind of that kind of discussion, right? Would rather keep the two separated. Yeah. On the forbidden pronoun message, not getting through automod. Oh god, it makes it a little more vanilla. I have an no, it's okay. You are using it appropriately. I just have the word flagged automatically so that people can't use it, abuse it. But you were fine. You didn't do anything wrong at all, Wizard's Bread book. That I think is it. You're expressing it about yourself too, right? So you're fine. It's funny. You even call. I didn't even see that. It's gonna get auto modded. My favorite pronoun I've ever heard is faggot self. Just have the courage to use it. Allow puts it at the end. Allow puts it at the end. That's right. Yeah. Dislike gender in general as a granulated label series. It's not fuzzy enough for me. I am gender abolitionist. Yeah, I think that you are trash. You and I have talked about it before, and I'm pretty sure that you are in the camp of gender abolition. Well, you're in the same way that I am for gender abolition, in that there should be no defined characteristics that anyone has to live up to be considered in a certain category. And I think that you and I are kind of aligned in that. I'm not a gender abolitionist, as in I believe that we should do away with all genders and nobody should have them. Such a thing does exist, though I don't think there's lots of advocates for that. But gender abolition, in that most cases it doesn't matter, and in the cases that it does are really kind of niche, and that those kind of cases don't. It also doesn't really matter. But as I've made clear, I'm not gender abolitionist, as in we should do away with genders, because people identify with genders and they do find that to be a rewarding and enriching part of their identity. Therefore, I think that that's a good thing, right? That we should have, that people should be free to do, to identify as how they'd like to. I do still respect other preferences. I also tend to avoid gendering in discussion in general. Something I'm really trying hard to move toward is a kind of generic thinking about others in a kind of way. Another analogy of Hirakure is white light passes through a prism and becomes red, blue, green once refracted. Once refracted, we name the colors. We separate them. But before, the prism isn't colorless. It contained all color in undivided form. that really makes a whole lot of sense too. That the dance analogy that Wizard's Bread Book gave was helpful, but didn't kind of, for me, help really click it into place. But that, I think, helps me to click it into place. And to be clear, it's not necessary for me to get it for someone else's gender to be acceptable, right? And that's, nobody said that, but something that I think that should be stated clearly. That you get it does not determine whether a category is a category that people are in. Right? That you get it is not a necessary condition of what people are. Right? Nobody said that. Nobody was making any kind of claims, and nobody in my community is going to make that erroneous assumption. I just, just in case there's any need to make that clarification made. There it is. I'm also about to head out, Wizard's Bread Book. Gotta make dinner. Thanks for the stream, chat, hanging out. Absolutely. Have a great day, Wizard's Bread Book. Oh, good to see you. Have a good one. I'm also about to head out. That's fine. It's borderline performative in many cases. To align with a label, but performance can be fun. Not saying that others can't do the thing. Right. Good. What an amazing conversation. And I really appreciate that, like, I was like, well, let's just wind this down and wrap up the stream like a freaking hour ago, and you all were like, no, we're just gonna keep putting stuff in chat. Good luck ending stream with all of this excellent content we're putting in chat. No, you're fine. You don't have any reason to apologize. There's a little bit of your framing trash that that might come off as a little abrasive. Because for what I mean is when you say it's borderline performance to align with the label, but performance can be fun. For some people, the impression that I've gotten from them is their experience is more than that. It's not that they identify with an archetype and don't mind living up to the expectation of the archetype. They feel a real affinity. That they see the archetype in the world and they go, that's me. That and I think that there's, and I don't think that you're trying to minimalize other people's experience, but there was a bit of your phrasing that made me kind of right, and I don't think that's what you mean at all, but for some people they might interpret that, they might read that and go, no, that's it, that you don't get my experience, right? And that's also fine, right? That you don't have to get their experience and you don't care, right, about that. You think that the whole thing doesn't matter anyway, right? You're unconcerned about it to begin with, but I'm often filtered as abrasive. Well, I mean, me too. Sometimes I'm abrasive. But that's okay, Trash. I love you anyway. We have a good time. Good. Good. Let me find a raid target. Yeah, abrasive is okay. Yeah. Some of my favorite people are abrasive people. And often people are called abrasive simply because they won't let other people walk over their boundaries. So, there's always that. But okay, we got some options to choose from today. That chap is on super late. Okay. Let's see what's going on over here. Let's see what's going on over here. Sure. It looks like it'll be a lot of fun. This is a channel that we haven't rated into. It's a little bit bigger channel. Not like a little bit bigger. It's a community that I haven't gotten an opportunity to hang out in as much as I would like to. But seems like a pretty awesome community. Let's raid into Lux Progressive. Yeah, good. Looks like everything worked. Good. Let's go make some new friends, huh? Go say hi, give them some love. Kakite. Did I pronounce that correctly? Kimatara? Kakite? Okay. Moving left is good. Good. And thanks for that heads up, but and moving in the right direction. Awesome. Good. Thank you. What a phenomenal stream, you all. And to think I almost didn't stream at all in the first 10 minutes. I was like, maybe I'm not going to stream today, but you all showed up. You brightened up my day. I feel fantastic. I hope all of you feel fantastic. Thank you so much for being here, being a part of my community, making this place the buzzing hub of amazing ideas that it is. And until the next time I see you, be excellent to each other.